was earlier on. Now we want to switch gears and have that conversation around standardization, and particularly in different sectors. We're talking about the creative economy, and also for those in the manufacturing space, how do we standardize some of our commodities, and especially those that we're looking to export outside the country. Now my guests are already in studio. On my immediate left we have William Nanjero, who's the CEO of Soul Generation. William, karibu.
Asante sana. Thank you for having me here.
All right, and next to him, of course, we have Zakaria Lokorito, who's the acting director, standards development at KTN, that is KEBS. Zakaria, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Jimmy.
All right, so first things first, I just want to bring Zakaria into this conversation. Today is the Standards Day, International Standards Day. And I just want to get your sentiments. What does this day then mean for manufacturers and for people like you who are in that space?
Thank you very much, Jimmy. This is a very important day for all of us, not only at the national level, but also globally. The World Standards Day is usually celebrated on 14th of October each year, but this year 14th was on a Saturday. Therefore, we decided to celebrate this day, today being a Monday on 16th, a working day. And for manufacturers, it's a great day when we meet and evaluate how have we efficiently been using the previous standards that we've developed, and also discuss future ideas and collaborations on how we should move forward as manufacturers in deepening our manufacturing enterprises, and also looking at how do we penetrate other markets beyond Kenya. And the standards is a tool that you can use to access markets, whether in the East African community, at the continental level, or even at international level. Therefore, this day is a very important day for us to celebrate and pay tribute to the thousands of experts who participate voluntarily in developing these standards, and their use on a daily basis in our lives.
So, and of course, Zakaria will be looking at how then do we use the likes of KEBS to be able to improve some of the quality of the items that we export. And I want to bring in Nanjero into this conversation. Nanjero, you are in the creative space.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest arguments that has been raging on for quite some time is that we have not come up with ways to standardize our output, particularly when you talk about music, for instance, we don't have a standard sound for Kenya. What needs to happen, and why has it taken so long for us to get there?
Fantastic. So if you look at the creative sector right now, it's a fully fledged value chain, and there's an ecosystem around it, which is great. If you look at the value of the industry right now, it's $1 billion industry. So how I'd say is the demand side and the supply side, we really need to segment each of the players in each of the areas of the value chain, and then bring in standards at that level. The beautiful thing about creative arts is it's largely now consumer driven. So whatever the musician sings, it doesn't mean it will scale if the consumer does not want to listen to it. Now, on the distribution side, the beautiful thing about it is, if you want to go global, if you want to get listed on some of these distribution platforms, there's a certain aesthetic and sound that you have to meet, and a certain requirement. So that kind of balances out. But on the production side, where we really need to work on is to ask ourselves, how can we scale the number of production centers in this country, the number of talent creators, talent enablers in this country. And these are some of the things that we are doing with our development program, so that we can bring in the quality in the beginning as we move towards the demand side.
And of course, Zakaria, when you talk about bringing in the quality, that means a lot of investment, whether it's in quality control, whether it's just making sure that these products meet a certain standard. Do you feel that there is a role that maybe government and processes such as KEBS the role that they can play then to be able to bring down the cost of some of these investments?
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I think it's important to understand how standards are developed first. One of the key areas that when we are developing standards, to engage stakeholders. That means that the real people who use these standards are involved from the onset. And what we said in standards are what we call minimum requirements. Therefore, we are setting a minimum level playing ground so that all manufacturers, all players can have a level playing ground, so that there is fair trade also as use these standards. Therefore, moving forward, how then can we work with stakeholders to entrench this culture of quality in the industry? Previously, we've been working with SMEs in various sectors, trying to take them through the requirements of these standards. Some of them are already applying standards, but they do not know that they're applying certain standards. If we upgrade them to the minimum requirements so that they can also penetrate regional as well as international markets. Therefore, for us, standards is a basis for any manufacturing entity or even a service provider to start off the business and actually meet the requirements that the customer requires. That includes looking at safety aspects, looking at the performance requirements, as also protecting the environment. And this year it's very important that we celebrate the World Standards Day, that we are focusing on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, cutting across all the 17, but with a specific focus on SDG number 3, which is looking at having good health and also health for all people. But these are very important area that we are looking at in terms of developing standards and seeing that actually the industry, whether you are in food, you are in road transport, you are environment or chemical, then you are meeting those minimum requirements that's supporting the SDGs at various levels. Therefore, as a country, we are working closely with the stakeholder to see that we entrench a culture of quality. One of the things we do as a national standards body is training. We are training various stakeholders to understand the basics of standards and why do they need to implement those standards. Then the next level, we are also working with them practically on how to implement those standards, assisting them where they are failing to see that they upgrade their manufacturing process, their systems to meet the minimum requirements. And we work closely with them to ensure that actually what we are developing, we are not just developing standards to put on the shelves, but we are developing standards that are demanded by the market, and we deliver them when they are required, and we want to ensure that they are used everywhere.
All right, so Nanjaro, I want to bring you back into this conversation.
Sure.
And one of the things that we are seeing, and particularly within the creative economy, is the fact that technology is rapidly changing things.
Exactly.
So from where you sit, how do we then harness the potential of technology to be able to make sure that whatever we produce as a country, we meet that international standard that then can be able to market us out there?
Exactly. And that's a fantastic point you brought. And technology, what tech has done for us in the creative industry is that you can be sitting in Isiolo right now and create, and you go global. And we've seen technological channels scaling the careers of young people in this country. So to me, the thing that we need to do first at the basic level is to ask ourselves, do we have a global product? And in the creation at the beginning, before you use the channel, we create a global product. And this is the thing that we internally are doing. We're asking ourselves, how can we build up these young guys to think globally, to identify the consumer globally? What do they want? What do they like from a dance, from a music, from an art perspective? And then now take that mentality and build using that mentality. It also takes a lot of experimentation to do that. And then once you create the product, now you identify the channels which will get you to global markets quicker. Is it Spotify? Is it Apple Music? Is it Deezer? Is it Instagram? Whatever it is, and then plug onto that platform. I think what we need to do a bit more is continue leveraging these platforms, these technological platforms, but harness partnerships with with other players who want to use these platforms. Just in closing on this point, a number of corporates have realized that young people are actually interacting with these platforms. So how can we partner with these corporates that want to speak to young people and leverage those platforms and then scale?
All right, so Zachary, one of the things that of course businesses and manufacturers have always said is some of these standards keep changing. There has been a lot of changes. Let's say the standards of 5 years ago are not the same standards that we expected to do this. As we wrap up this conversation, what is the role of bodies such as yourself, particularly those at the national government, going to play to make sure that we appraise our consumers and we appraise those manufacturers who are manufacturing to be able to know that this is the required standards, this is what changed last year, this is what we need going forward?
Thank you very much. Before I move on to that one, I can comment on what Nanjaro has mentioned about the audio and the visual standards. Globally, we also have specific standards at the international level, which we've adopted also as a country and as a regional bodies in terms of audio quality and also visual quality. Therefore, there are also specific standards in services that can support the creative art. Therefore, moving back to your question on standards being dynamic, we always say at KEPS that standards are living documents. That means that they keep on changing as technology changes. Specifically, a standard is reviewed after 5 years if there's no or need to review it in between. But standards, as I've mentioned, are living documents. Therefore, they can be changed, they can be amended, they can be upgraded at any given time, depending on the market demands and how fast technology is moving. Because technology that was used 5 years ago is no longer being used today. Therefore, we need to continuously upgrade our standards to be in line with the latest technologies and the latest practice also in manufacturing or even in service provision. Therefore, normally what we do, we develop standards using stakeholders, as I've mentioned. We have the industry players who are already working in the industry and understand how fast the technology is moving, what is required today and what will be required perhaps even tomorrow. Therefore, looking at all those aspects, we receive the comments, then we look at the standards that we developed a few years ago, review them and incorporate the latest changes, and then update them to being current as well. Therefore, if there's any change that we need to make, we can amend, we can revise, we can sometimes even remove the standard completely if it's not serving our purpose. Therefore, once we do that again, we communicate to all stakeholders. One of the principles that we use in international standardization, and of which we have also adopted at the national level, is transparency and openness. Transparency basically means that we have to make the documents available to the users, inform them of the changes that have happened once they are approved, and openness is where we involve all the stakeholders. We involve stakeholders from the service sector, we involve the stakeholders from the manufacturing, we involve stakeholders from the from government, regulators, as well as any other interested stakeholders, including the universities and research institutions. We bring all of them together to develop those standards. Therefore, again, that involvement ensures that we are keeping abreast with the latest technologies and advancement in the industry as we look at the existing standards and also as we develop the new standards.
All right, so Nanjero, as we wrap up this conversation, and I want you to have the final word in about 30 seconds or so. I want you to help me understand, going forward then, what do we need to do as a creative sector to make sure that we improve our output?
Fantastic. We need to start gaining insights, understand what the consumer wants, put these insights into action, develop quality standards in production. For example, with the development program that we're running right now called Press Play, that has targeted over 300 artists across Eastern and Central Africa. Take these young people, put them through production, quality production, with an aesthetic that meets global standards, and then put this through a distribution network and channel that works. Once we do that and we continue learning from an insights-based perspective, we'll get there. So I'd say that.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for making time to speak to us. And of course, on that note, we want to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be giving you more details, particularly what are some of the other stories making headlines within the world of business, and then we'll be moving and switching gears and speaking about an issue that I'm sure you'll be interested in, and that is to do with the role of asset management in market liquidity. Stay with us.